Alright, so I thought I'd do a story problem, one of these word problems for you about exponential decay. So here we have a problem. A town in the Midwest has been experiencing a steady population decline of 5.25% per year for the past decade. If there were 11,200 residents in the year 2011 and the trend continues, what will the population be in 2028? And then part B is to use a graph to determine approximately when there will be 2,000 people in the town. So first off, there's a few things that we need to look at here. All right, I'm going to just kind of mark some of these. So we see that it's a decline, right, of 5.25%. So remember, when we're dealing with that, that's our decline rate, but what we're really wanting to know on this is how many people are left. So remember that you're going to be really doing 100% minus the 5.25% to figure out what our common ratio is that we'll be multiplying by there. And so when we do that, right, that's really 94.75%. And then we need to change that to a decimal. So that's going to be 0.9475 is the decimal that we're going to be using for that. And that right there is the constant rate that we are talking about. Or we've also called it our B, the B in our equations. Remember that equation that we use to write these exponential equations is the y equals a times b to the x power. All right, so this represents our b, is what we just found here. All right, the other thing that I would look at then is it's talking about in the year, so there were 11,200 people in 2011. And we want to know, what's going to happen in 2028. So the important thing to kind of notice here is that when we're talking about this, we're saying that the year 2011 is our start. And remember, whenever we're talking about our start time, that's going to be 0, right? Our start amount is 11,200 people. Right, so we've got our time in years and then the number of people. So continuing this on, just to make sure it's clear to you, so when t equals 1, that's really 2012. When t equals 2, that's 2013. T equals 3, that's 2014, and so on. And you could, keep taking these all the way up, but really a faster way to do this, to figure out what our t is that we'll want to subtract those 2 years. So we want to know what's going to happen in 2028. Right? So they asked us over here. And right now, right, that start amount was in 2011, so I need to subtract those numbers. So that gives us 17. So in 2028, right, our t will be 17. All right. And so we can, use our multiplier if we wanted to figure out what it was going to be in year 1 and then year 2 and so on. And so that's one way that we can go about it. But notice that it will be easiest, because we don't want to have to keep multiplying these over and over again, if we can write up an equation where we can use these things, right? So let me move over here. I'm going to go to a different color here. So we'll use the equation y equals a times b all to the x power. Right? And then we need to think to ourselves, all right, what does a stand for? What does b stand for in this equation? A is the start amount, and b is the rate that we're using, right? That growth rate that we talked about over here. So let's go ahead and put that into the equation. So we know we have y equals, in place of a, we'll put that 11,200 times our b, which is 0.9475, all raised to the x power. And now this is an equation that we can use and figure out for any year how many people there might be in there. So since we want to know in 2028, that's when t is 17, so let's put that into our equation that we just made. And then just use your calculator to do this. Make sure that you're using the order of operations. So that means that you need to raise to the power first and then times it by that 11,200. And so when you do that, you get y equals 4,477.80 and so on. All right, but notice up here it says we want to round to the nearest person, so that looks like we need to round up since we're rounding to the nearest whole number. So 4,478 people is what we would get for part A. Alright, so for part B of this, remember it said that you're trying to determine when there's going to be 2,000 people left in this town. So one of the things that we can do is we can use a little graphing calculator that we can find online. And so I would just suggest you go to this desmos.com, and it's a free graphing calculator. So when we go to this, we'll notice that we have a place where we can put in an equation. So let's go ahead and put in that equation that we got. So that would be y equals 11,200 times 0.9475 raised to the x power. So to raise it to a power, just need to hit the shift 6. And make sure that when you're writing things in here, do not use any commas in these numbers because it thinks you're trying to write an ordered pair when you do that. So just leave that number without a comma in it. And then we'll go ahead and graph this by just hitting enter, and it doesn't show on our screen here because notice that our start amount was 11,200. So that means I need to zoom out quite a bit so I can figure out where that's going to be. All right, and I can see my graph starting to form there. It's back in that spot, but I want to know where it's going to hit at 2,000. So I definitely want to make sure that 2,000 is in here. And then the other equation that we're going to do is we want to make a line that y equals 2,000 so I can tell where those two graphs would intersect each other. And that is going to give us the approximate amount of people that would be there. So when I click on there, I can see that it looks like it's saying that it's 39.945, and this is in years. And so really our answer to that we came up with before is going to be 32 years for that part B. right? So, but then that doesn't tell us exactly which year that is in. So make sure that you do a little bit of the work there because we want to know when it's going to be there. So if we said it's approximately 32 years, the population, it's going to be 2000. Well, 32 years from what? Remember that it started in 2011 was where our start amount was. So that means that we need to use 2011 as our starting point, and then we'll add 32 to that. And then that will tell us which year this will be in. So 2043 is the year the population will be 2000. Right? So on your homework, when you're given a question like that, when it's asking, gives you your y and asking you to solve for x, the best way to go about it is going to be to use your graphing, the online graphing calculator that we talked about here with this. All right, let me know if you have any questions.